take an in-depth look at Carpe Diem, the new tile drafting and placement game designed by Stefan Feld and published by Alea. We really enjoyed Carpe Diem. It's a nice mix of worker movement, tile laying, and fighting for optimal, coveted scoring conditions. Stay tuned to find out more. In Carpe Diem, you're a wealthy patrician in ancient Rome and are working to build a lucrative and prosperous city district. The game plays with 2 to 4 players and takes about 15 to 20 minutes per player. Our thoughts on Carpe Diem come after 3 plays with 2 players and 3 plays with 4 players. The game is played over 4 weeks, or 4 rounds, each round consisting of 7 actions. On your turn, you have to move your worker to a connected section on the opposite side of the 7-pointed star. There, you select one tile, which you then place on your own player board. A tile must be placed adjacent to another tile, and also typical for such tile-laying games, tiles are only allowed to be connected to a tile of the same type. For example, a chicken landscape can be connected to only another chicken landscape tile. And you continue this flow and slowly build up your little Roman city district, trying to complete, for example, different types of areas to gain resources, or to finish buildings like the bakery to get bread, or to gain end-of-game scoring cards. Buildings and areas should not be put just randomly on your board. Instead, you want to try to fulfill victory point conditions that are indicated on the side of your land area. These conditions show you the line a certain type of building needs to be built on to gain points. At the end of a round, or after your 7th turn, you will have to choose and hopefully can fulfill 2 neighboring scoring cards, which most often immediately give you victory points. If you're not able to fulfill the 2 cards, you have to give up valuable points. The interesting part of the end-of-round scoring system is that your markers remain on the cards and block that spot for the rest of the game, thereby making the available scoring choices very tight during the later rounds. First off, we really liked the Carpe Diem rulebook. It flows nicely and smoothly and took us no time at all to learn and understand the rules. We're even impressed that we almost never encountered any questions while playing, other than the question of whether you can use 3 bread tokens multiple times as a joker to fulfill a scoring card more than once. So overall, a big thumbs up for the rules. And teaching the game was normally very easy and straightforward. Even players new to gaming didn't have a hard time diving into the game, and they directly understood the basic flow of the game. But the iconography and graphic design is a different story, but more on that later. Carpe Diem is fun. It's actually a lot of fun. It's great to think about where to go next, what to build next to be able to fulfill scoring cards at the end of the round, and also not to forget the victory point fulfillment conditions on the side of the board. It presents a nice mixture that makes every game a little puzzle, a puzzle which is interesting for a wide spectrum of gamers. Carpe Diem was a success for us when we played it with less experienced players, and also a hit with more experienced players. Even after 6 plays, we aren't feeling bored by it. We would still be very happy to play again. In terms of replayability, there are many different scoring cards which will nearly always give the game a slightly different focus. Sometimes there will be a game with opportunities to gain a considerable amount of bread or gold, and sometimes it might be an advantage to build many villas, and sometimes a healthy mix of everything is best. Also, your player board and the outer scoring conditions will change from game to game, which will likely influence which tiles you'll pick and how you'll place them. We didn't encounter any glaring balancing issues, only during our 4th play where we thought that scoring points from the villas might be too powerful, but then in our 5th game a player won with almost no villas. So in the end, it's about seeing if you can get enough victory points in various ways, through good use of scoring cards and fountain cards. Completed villas will give you points automatically at the end of the game, making them more easy to utilize and very strong. But scoring cards, on the other hand, are a little bit more difficult to always use optimally. The card or cards that you're aiming for need to be available, and you need to be able to place your marker down on these cards in order to generate valuable points, which means you can be blocked by others while trying to score points from the scoring cards. The playing time of Carpe Diem is another really strong point for us. A 4-player game can be played in about an hour. So even though there are enough decisions to make, it still feels fast and the turns are pretty brisk. We enjoyed the game with 2 and with 4 players, and we think it definitely scales well. The 2-player version feels a little easier, even though fewer scoring cards are laid out and available during the first end-of-round scoring. The easier part with 2 players comes when choosing your tiles. There are more tile options to choose from because even in your 7th and final tile selection, you'll be choosing from 3 tiles. In a 4-player game, you have to take the last tile that's laying there. You have no choice. And it does happen that you don't want to put that final tile on your tableau, which is allowed and you can just set it to the side, or you might not be able to legally place it on your tableau due to the tile placement rules. Therefore, it did happen more often to us in a 4-player game that we had to adjust our tactics based on which tiles were left towards the end of the final turns of a round. But it didn't feel too chaotic, and it was just a tighter experience with more players. And yet there are still enough tiles and enough rounds to build a successful Roman city district. With all the praise we have for the game, and there are almost no negative points we would mention for the gameplay itself, we were disappointed with the art design of the game. So let's start with what for us is more a matter of taste. Carpe Diem definitely feels old school. It's not very nice looking and it basically has no theme. You could be putting any type of tiles down in your tableau. But in all honesty, this doesn't bother us because a well-test-played, smooth game with excellent gameplay is worth so much more to us than an amazing-looking game with unpolished balancing or wonky rules or subpar gameplay. But still, we think that Carpe Diem might have a tough time competing with other games because it will get the stigma of being another older-looking alea game. The material is overall only okay. The scoring cards are too thin, but luckily you only mix them once, and then most likely never touch them again during the game. Also, the victory points are in the form of cards, again which are too thin, and the cards don't look very nice. But the biggest problem for us has to do with the colors and iconography. For example, there are 2 different types of tiles, ones with a green backside and ones with a dark green backside. And these 2 colors can only be differentiated if you put them next to each other, and even then it's not really clear. Thankfully, separating the green and the dark green tiles is only required during setup and not important for the gameplay. But what is important for gameplay are the building colors and the building iconography. And here it happened quite often that people couldn't tell the difference between a dark brown field and a dark purple field, and the bakery building, which is a light brown, looks like the merchant building, which is a mustard yellow. And here the problem, additionally, is that both buildings, the bakery and the merchant building, have the same exact cross shape and only differ in color, but again, barely. So overall, playing the game does sometimes require keen eyesight to prevent accidentally taking the wrong tile, and this is only because the building shapes are identical and the colors are just too similar. The reason why we're bothered about the problems in graphic design and color choice is that Carpe Diem is not only a solid game, it's more for us. It's fun and just excellent, and we hope that maybe in the future there might be a second printing with more bold and discernible colors. Just something to fix, at the bare minimum, the colors in the game. Because the game definitely deserves it. It deserves to shine. Overall, we like the quick flow of the game, we like the length of gameplay, we enjoy the great medium difficulty that makes it accessible to many people, the tile-laying aspect, and in the end we like so many parts of the game that we have to highly recommend it to check it out. Even though it's one of the first games we believe would have checked almost all boxes for a Kennerspiel nomination, we think this would likely only happen if the colors and the symbols on the cards would have been chosen more carefully. And this is even ignoring the otherwise more or less themeless game and outdated artwork. It might be tough for Carpe Diem to become a highlight of this year's Essen, which is a shame because it's a truly stellar game that, based on its gameplay, would have definitely earned some attention.
Thank you for watching Games Up. See you next time.